Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Anna, and I am a project associate at Clean Energy Group. The topic for today's webinar is implementing community programs alongside Resilience Hub development. This webinar is being presented by Clean Energy Group as a part of the Resilient Power Project. Before we go any further, let's just dig into a couple quick webinar logistics. You'll notice you have a webinar console, which should look like the picture that's shown on the screen here on the left. You can use the console to adjust your audio. Either you can listen from your computer's mic and speakers, or you can join in via telephone. All of our attendees are in listen-only mode. While you can't speak to us directly, we do hope that you use the Q&A box to be able to submit questions. We are hoping to reserve about 15 minutes at the end of today's webinar so that you all can ask your questions and get them answered by today's awesome panelists. You can submit questions during the Q&A, but we also ask that you submit them ahead of time just so that we can get that list of questions going. Today's webinar is going to be recorded. You will get a copy of today's recording in an email later today. It will also be published to our website, cleanegroup.com/webinars. That is a good webinar or good website to know, because that's also where we post all of our upcoming webinars and other information that you all may want to access. And with that, I will pass it over to today's moderator, Marielle Mango, who is a project director at Clean Energy Group.
Hi everyone, I'm Marielle Mango. I'm a project director at Clean Energy Group. Clean Energy Group works at the forefront of clean energy innovation to accelerate an equitable and inclusive transition to a resilient, sustainable clean energy future. I encourage everyone to check out the website, especially because it has just been redone and it looks great, and to reach out if you have any questions. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Resilient Power Project, which works to increase equitable access to solar and battery storage, particularly in underserved communities, marginalized communities, and communities that have been thus far left out of the green energy movement. So here are some of the reports that we have recently released. I encourage everyone to check out our publications. We work on a variety of issues, from policy to project support to project development, and working one-on-one with different organizations like our two great panelists today. Through our Technical Assistance Fund program, which we'll be highlighting a little bit later today, we have supported 250 projects across the United States. That means basically that CEG has provided some sort of one-on-one support and expertise, and really supporting critical facilities understand solar and storage and how they can access it. We'd like to include this map just to show how many folks that we've worked with in different geographies, as well as that the program is increasingly expanding across the country, whereas we've seen interest in the past primarily from the Northeast and California. Over the past 5 years, it's really expanded to include the Southeast, the Midwest, and all that. So. And today, so we have some awesome speakers that I'll be getting to shortly. Our first is Dr. Estelle Marie Montgomery. She is an executive director at Faunteroy Center. Dr. Montgomery started her career as a neuroscientist and brings more than 25 years of executive leadership experience, specializing in strategic planning, operations, and organizational transformation. She holds a BA in psychology from Rollins College, where she was a Martin Luther King Jr. Scholar, and a PhD from Washington University in St. Louis, where she focused on developmental neurosciences, neurophysiology, and where she was also a Chancellor Fellow. As a postdoctoral fellow, she was awarded the National Research Service Award, and she brings her wealth of experience to the Faunteroy Center to facilitate the successful implementation of the first resilience hub of its kind in DC, which she will be diving into further. And today we are also lucky enough to have Queen Zakiya Shabazz, who is an author, educator, lecturer, and environmental justice advocate. Her work began in 1996 when she discovered that her young son had been poisoned by lead, prompting her to establish United Parents Against Lead, or UPAL for short. In addition to serving as UPAL's executive director, Queen is CEO for the Virginia Environmental Justice Collaborative. She was an inaugural Community Partners in Residence Fellow at the University of Richmond and a former elementary school teacher. Queen holds a bachelor's in business administration and a paralegal certificate specializing in real estate and civil litigation, and is a 2019 graduate of the EPA's Environmental Justice Academy. I am so grateful and excited to have these two here to talk to you today. So I'm going to do a very quick presentation so I can hand it over to them to get to the really interesting work. So part of the underlying connection of today's webinar is that both Faunteroy Center and UPAL were awardees of Clean Energy Group's Resilient Power Leadership Initiative, as well as the Technical Assistance Fund. So I thought it'd be helpful just to go through a little bit of what each of those programs are. So there's some context today about why we're highlighting awesome projects that would be able to both pursue an actual solar and storage installation, a resilient power system for the Resilience Hub, while also incorporating in community initiatives, community develop in parallel, which is a really interesting and unique opportunity. So the Resilient Power Technical Assistance Fund provides technical support to build local resilience. We have provided over $1 million in funding over the past 10 years to communities to evaluate solar and storage at critical community facilities. I say critical community facilities, but that is really defined by the organizations that we work with. What is critical in your community? Our real only eligibility for the program is, does it serve otherwise underserved populations in the event of a power outage? And the project must explore solar and battery storage. I like to include a quote in here from one of our recent awardees. With our Technical Assistance Fund grant, our small grassroots nonprofit was able to hire a local consultant to work with us on finding a low budget solar and storage system for our small food hub in a rural community highly impacted by Hurricane Maria. That was provided us by the co-founder of El Departamento de la Comida in Puerto Rico, Tara Rodriguez-Poceso, and she was awarded a TAF in 2019. So really the big push of this initiative is to be able to support the development of clean energy projects aimed at decreasing energy burdens and increasing resiliency. It really provides one-on-one support from Clean Energy Group, as well as connection to engineers and third-party support to actually conduct a solar and storage feasibility assessment on a specific facility. So oftentimes we'll work with folks to make sure they understand what solar and storage is, what their expectations are for the project, and then we can pair them with an engineer, or they can come with their own to actually look at what does that mean? What are the economics? What does it cost? Where would it be sited? Are there any concerns about like our current electrical or roof situation? And this is really that first step. It's the foot in the door of being able to take a vendor agnostic report with a comprehensive study of what your site needs to be able to dive into next steps, whether that's grant funding, financing, whatever it may be. We typically award around $8,500 per property, and we prioritize projects and organizations that serve LMI populations and BIPOC communities. So that's the basis of this program as it offered today. We have worked across 28 states, and then DC and Puerto Rico, with hundreds of partners, thousands of units of affordable housing. So far to date, about 25% of the projects that have been supported through a TAF have moved forward to solar and storage completion. It can take a long time, especially for community groups, to be able to actually raise the expertise and the funding to get these projects done. And CEG tries to stick with them throughout that process, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. We just supported a project that took 5 years to complete, in it for the long haul in order to support folks to actually get this work done in their community. The Resilient Power Leadership Initiative is another small grant program that Clean Energy Group provides that focuses on building resilient power capacity locally. So internal support for organizations that have either a resilient power goal, or they want to be able to do more resilient power programming, but they haven't really been able to set aside a budget to dedicate some staff time. So to date, over the past 10 years, this program has provided almost $200,000 in funding to community-based organizations to increase their internal capacity so they can devote more time to resilient power-based issues. Whether that's a program, a policy, a workforce training, like we'll hear about today from Queen, there's a lot of different ways this program can be applied. And another quote from one of our partners in New Orleans, Denise Williams, who's the executive director of Feed the Second Line, she was an awardee this year, said, "The Resilient Power Leadership Initiative provides extra support for Feed the Second Line leadership to continue the work of being on the front lines and efforts to continue to support the communities in our city in the aftermath of a natural disaster through our Get Lit, Stay Lit program. So some details here. Again, it's just trying to seed long-term community-led programs, making sure that folks have the support that they need. CEG offers one-on-one support throughout, as much or as little as an organization needs it. These grants are for $10,000, they're for 1 year. It's a much smaller program than the Technical Assistance Fund, which provides funding year-round and has a much larger budget. We typically only award 2 to 3 Resilient Power Leadership initiatives per year, just because of funding limitations. And it's meant to be a low barrier of entry, minimal reporting. It's really just meant to be able to give money to the folks that need it to dive into the work that they want to do. And again, 100% of our Resilient Power Leadership Initiative awards go to BIPOC-led and serving organizations. So with that, I will pass it off to our first speaker, Dr. Estelle. You can take it away.
Thank you so much. I am attempting as I may to get on camera here. Okay, there we go. Let's go back. Okay. Thank you so very much. And thanks to Clean Energy Group for the support that they have provided to us over the years, and also the opportunity for us to be able to present on the work that we've been doing here in Ward 7 in Washington, D.C. We, the FH Faunteroy Community Enrichment Center, the community and our governmental agency partners have been very dedicated to this work, and I just want to commend everyone that's been a part of it. I appreciate the opportunity to walk everyone through a story that started before I came to the Faunteroy Center 2 years ago, and I feel very honored to be the one that hopefully will be bringing it to its full realization and fruition. And I hope that this story inspires you, and look forward to hearing any questions at the end of the presentations. So a little bit about ourselves. The legal name for the Faunteroy Center is the Roxon Community Development Corporation. We are a 501c3 organization, and we do business as FH Faunteroy Community Enrichment Center. It was established about 10 years ago. Actually, we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary during our yearly Juneteenth celebration. So if you are in the DC area and you're looking for a Juneteenth event, be sure to drop by and look us up. We are at the ground level. Our location is quite significant, actually, because, and you'll see that in being selected as a resilience hub, that our location is everything. We are on the commercial ground level of a mixed-use, 100% affordable housing building. Above us are 3 levels that total 70 family units of 1 to 3 bedroom apartments. And since its inception, the Faunteroy Center has been delivering programming to the community across all generations, from youth, adults, to seniors. Bit about our work. The purpose of the Faunteroy Center was to have a resource in the community, just as a sense of history and reference. Prior to the building actually being, finalized and put up in 2013, there hadn't been a new development in this corridor since the 1960s. So that in itself is quite significant. And so the purpose was to build trust and to build community capacity by having this community center here. One also very important aspect of our organization is that it is truly, truly a safe haven for our youth. Our youth come to us after school, and they stay with us from anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. And when they arrive here, they are able to engage with us through enriching programs, but also able to just decompress. And at times, unfortunately, it becomes a safe haven because of something violent that might have just happened. Our vision is to build capacity through intergenerational resilience and opportunities for sustainability. We do believe in the power of intergenerational programming. While we have separate youth, adult, and senior programming, we do feel that there is a certain strength when you bring youth and seniors and adults together in programming. The mission is to support the community self-determination. And this self-determination you will see as the story unfolds in terms of how this Resilience Hub pilot was even established. The self-determination at an intergenerational level by providing consistent, high-quality programming, embedded environmental stewardship, and opportunities for enrichment, education, and exposure to enable resilience and sustained outcomes. And it's really about those sustained outcomes. We provide opportunities for underexposed, underserved, underrepresented population in the District of Columbia. Just a slide that depicts all of the acute challenges that we have, the stressors in the community, everything from being within the floodplain in the 100-year floodplain in Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, Ward 7 contains 87% of the single-family homes that are within the 100-year floodplain. That in itself is a stressor. And with climate change, flooding and heavy rains are happening far more frequently. We have other stressors related to health, economic outcome, and some of those health challenges having to do with the fact that it is a food desert and food security is a major issue, along with employability, the unemployment rates that are also much higher in the area that we serve. So solving for health, economic, environmental, and also emergency stressors. These have all become issues where collectively the community has been evaluating and figuring out how they can, through a very multidisciplinary approach, address all of these issues such that there are programming resources that can be brought to the community to create a very dependable sense of resiliency, and as a result, sustained outcome. So important in this story is that it says here 2018, but I think it was more in 2017, the DC Department of Energy and Environment and Energy convened the Equity Advisory Group. And this was initiated as a way to explore with community leaders in Ward 7 the idea of resilience hubs and what in fact Ward 7 would require in a resilience hub. And through that process, the vulnerabilities that Ward 7 faced were brought to light. And that community group, the Ward 7 RHCC, which is the Ward 7 Resilience Hub Community Coalition, defined a blueprint for what in Ward 7 a resilience hub would need to look like. And a lot of the work that they did in research was also heavily based on the work of the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, USDN. They are the think tank in the United States regarding resilience hubs, and they provide us with a very accurate definition in terms of when we talk about resilience, what do we mean? So resilience is the ability of people and their communities to anticipate, accommodate, and positively adapt to or thrive amidst changing climate condition and hazard events. In order to be able to do this, it would mean that a resilient community has to also be able to enjoy a high quality of life, reliable systems, infrastructure, and economic vitality. And they conserve resources for present and future generations. The term resilience is often interchangeably with emergency preparedness and response, but these elements only address part of this important concept. And we have taken this to heart, where whilst we are preparing and educating ourselves on hazards, We are also very much focused on the human element, capacity building. And so the ideas of that blueprint to action at the height of the pandemic, which made all of the vulnerabilities even more apparent, the sense of urgency for the resilience hubs became also clear. And the Faunteroy Center was selected by the Ward 7 Resilience Hub Community Committee in coordination with the Department of Environment and Energy to transform into the first pilot resilience hub in Ward 7. And in doing so, the Faunteroy Center already had its track record as a community-based organization, a trusted community-based organization. And the task was to look at the programming that it had been providing the community, evaluate, study the blueprint that was developed by the RHCC, and merge the mission vision of the Faunteroy Center's founding and the future view of how transforming into a resilience hub, incorporating the components of a resilience hub, would be able to serve the community into the future in a more sustainable manner. And so we at the Faunteroy Center understand that the resilience hub will need to respond to community stressors and focus on human outcomes, not only managing the hazards. And examples of this are about food access, public safety, flooding, unemployment, resource allocation, mental health, wellness, and access to information. And these are pictures actually from some of our programming that have taken place, our Juneteenth celebration, our community engagement hand dancing, the youth, you can see the picture there. We are starting a bike club with the youth that also have aspects of workforce development, and our senior tech program, which we piloted just recently, and the CERT training that we are also hosting at the community center. And this is just a few of our programming. So just really quickly, in terms of resilience hubs and what are they and what are the expectations, they are community serving facilities that have been augmented. And this augmentation is targeted at addressing all of the different components that are necessary to be a resilience hub. In our case, the Faunteroy Center is lucky enough to be located and have the ability to really aspire to be a top tier resilience hub. And in also designing our space and our programming, understanding that serving the normal state, steady state, is the majority of what we would be doing, while we are sure to be prepared for any disruption and recovery from that. And COVID provided us with another blueprint on the idea of disruption and recovery. Again, according to the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, the 5 areas in which a resilience hub needs to consider for its function, structure, operation, power, communication, and programming. And that power component is where the Clean Energy Group in particular, their efforts have been of great value. And then the principles in terms of the Ward 7 Resilience Hub and having chosen the Faunteroy Center, our location, our ability to address the resources that are needed, and also the community trust that was already in place. These are the various levels of a resilience hub, and of resilience hubs. And as already mentioned, our objective is to aspire to be an ideal resilience hub, which requires all components of a base and optimal resilience hub, including the additional components to be an ideal resilience hub. And then this is just a summary of some of the reasons why we were chosen. Our ability to install solar and battery backup, which I will be able to show you a diagram about. The residents who live on site, so we have flexibility in terms of opening the space when it's needed. Located in an area with resilience needs. So the needs of the community is not a concept for us. We're right here where we're needed. One does not have to travel very far to get to us. Accessibility by transit as well. We are located very closely to metro stations and bus line that stops right in front of our building. We're able to grow the organization through capacity building. We're also able to expand our physical space from 2,000 to 6,000 in total physical space. We also have community gathering spaces currently in the 2,000 square foot, and also in the future expansion, we would have more community gathering spaces. Our staff has already established relationships with the community and partners, and this is a very powerful foundation from which we will be expanding upon. And more importantly, that expansion is taking place in what is actually considered commercial component of the building. But the building owner has invested in the concept of a resilience hub for the community, and that has been key in holding the space free while we secured other funding to implement the resilience hub. Also important to note that the initiative as a resilience hub also aligns very much with Climate Ready DC plan for this area in DC, which have been identified as priority areas for resilience planning. So specifically for the Faunteroy Center, its consideration as it focuses on the pilot and how it would deploy it. Again, the Resilience Hub is expected to serve during steady state, disruptive state, and recovery. And the areas in which we are focused in programming and resourcing is when you think about community self-determination, community engagement and empowerment, sometimes considered soft resilience, but that's really the basis of the community connections that are truly the essence of how you build that community self-determination or connect the community self-determination. Health, so addressing wellness and food security issues, infrastructure, power backup and solar infrastructure, wealth as it relates to workforce development and capacity building, and awareness, so the preparedness for disaster and readiness for emergencies. So in one slide, this is in essence who we are, what we are, and how we're doing our work as a resilience hub. We are building the plane as it's flying. So programming are ongoing, programs are being piloted that will be expanded into the future. So the cornerstone of our organization is about building resilience and creating sustainability through intergenerational programming that's embedded in environmental literacy. Our programmatic arms are focused on workforce development and literacy, health and wellness, disaster and emergency readiness, and community engagement. When we think about the infrastructural component, which is not necessarily depicted here, it is the physical aspect that allows the building to also continuously serve the community. So when there's a power outage, our solar and battery backup would allow our organization to continue to serve the organization. And important to just note, again, we are establishing our programming with the understanding that the Resilience Hub play an important role in disadvantaged communities by enabling capacity building, readiness to handle disruption, and provide ongoing resources. When we need to be a distribution center, we will be a distribution center. Again, COVID provided us with some blueprint on that. And we're building on the history of this community. This community has an extremely strong history. And we're building on that history, we're building on a community trust and ambitions. The Resilience Incubator, as we are referring to the Resilience Hub here at the FH Faunteroy Center, is being established on the principles of equity, inclusion, and justice, and focus on building intergenerational resilience and creating sustainability in collaboration with community members, government, the public and private sectors, and we cannot underscore that enough, that this has been a collaborative effort. Programs and services are grounded in workforce development, literacy, health, and wellness, as I've already mentioned. Our location is at 4800 Nanny Helen Burroughs in far northeast, Ward 7, and we plan to transform the location into an innovative, sustainably designed community engagement center and an ideal resilience hub. This just goes into the various spaces that we will have in the Resilience Hub. The floor plan, which on this dimension doesn't look too exciting, but the three-dimensional representation provides a little bit of insight in terms of, if you can see my mouse, where I'm circling my mouse is the current space. Everything beyond that current space is part of the future build out, from a commercial kitchen with a staging area, cafe, broadcasting studio, another community gathering space, wellness, meditation, and interview areas, and a tech training center with augmented reality and virtual reality training capabilities, more community gathering spaces, and a maker space. So that will be the various components, and each of these spaces will be considered and designed for the 3 states of ongoing disruption and recovery. And for the clean energy group, through the technical support, a feasibility study was possible regarding the solar design and battery backup. And this is an example of the outcome of that work that was supported, which is a design for how solar on the rooftop of the building could be installed. And I wanted to wrap up the conversation by acknowledging a few key funding sources that are key to the implementation and success of this Resilience Hub. Firstly, as I've mentioned, technical support from organizations like Clean Energy Group, extremely vital. This work has allowed us to speak to other partners. And we have the Holmes Norton Community Fund from fiscal year 22 that is allowing us to have the seed money for the phase 1 of the build out, and the Department of Environment and Energy, who are matching that fund. We have a NOAA grant that has enabled us to bring on a Resilience Hub coordinator who is focused on the rolling out of environmental literacy through our organization and also the RHCC, the Resilience Hub Community Coalition, who remain vital in the rollout of this Resilience Hub. We were also supported by the K. Fritz Foundation, the Prince Charitable Funds Foundation, and the J40 Justice Capacity Building Fund. This is just to name a few of, as I've mentioned, key funders that have been part of programs that we've piloted and will be part of the build out and expansion of our capacity and footprint. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so very much.
Great, thank you so much. That was great. We already have a bunch of questions coming in, which is awesome. So I encourage everyone to keep sending them in, and I will pass it off to our next presenter. Thank you, Queen.
And thank you. Good Tuesday, everyone. I'm Queen Shabazz, and I'm pleased to be here with you today to present Partnering for Resilient Communities and to give you a peek into the Petersburg, Virginia Community Resiliency Hub. Let's see. Are you sharing so that I can advance it? I don't see the arrows, Anna.
Yes, this time it's in PDF. Maybe try using your forward and backwards arrows.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so UPAL Solar Powered Community Resiliency Hub is a joint venture of United Parents Against Lead and the Virginia Environmental Justice Collaborative. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about both organizations. UPAL ensures the fundamental rights of all children to live in a safe and healthy environment. Founded in 1996 as a result of my learning that my young son, who was under 2 years old, had been poisoned by lead. All UPAL chapters are led by parents of lead-poisoned children. We implemented a $2 million HUD grant, the Lead Elimination Action Project, back in 2004. We are a member of the Lead Service Line Replacement Collaborative, and we have declared April as Lead Awareness Month. So glad to be actually doing this presentation during the month of April and sharing information about United Parents Against Lead. Partnering for Resilient Petersburg, we are creating a solar-powered community resiliency hub with battery backup storage. We serve also as the Arm and Arm Hub, the Virginia headquarters, where we center racial and economic justice to end the climate crisis by focusing on disruptive humanitarianism. We have launched the EJ Youth Academy with the Fahude Shule, which is an African-based homeschooling project in the city of Richmond. Also, the Lead Service Line Replacement Project, Preventing Another Flint with the 1619th Incorporated, and we'll be having some programs coming up later this year, throughout the year. We are promoting equity in transportation and building electrification. We are to get some EV charging stations placed across the street from the Resiliency Hub in Petersburg, and promoting also building electrification. We have a restaurant that is in the process of being licensed. That's going to be called Aren't You Hungry? And we'll invite people to come there and have a bite to eat with us while learning about the historic significance of the hub. And the restaurant, we're promoting that we use all electrical appliances as a way of getting away from, from gas and the dangers that are associated with gas stoves and just using gas, period. We provide lead dust buster kits to families, and we advocate for the release of Sergio Gray, who's a young man that's been unjustly sentenced to 40 years in prison. He is a lead poisoned child. You can learn more about Sergio on our website. And also we've received funding to build a garden labyrinth, and that's behind, and it's in the backyard of our Richmond Training Center. We're going to have the dedication on May 6th, which is World Labyrinth Day, and that labyrinth is used to promote health and wellness. Again, dedicated to ensuring the fundamental rights of all children to live in a safe and healthy environment. UPAL is a national networking organization looking to end, lead poisoning and other environmental hazards. And these are some of our goals: increase resiliency and security, increase energy democracy through the Petersburg Hub, increase parity in clean energy technology, including solar+storage, and decreased energy burdens and increased energy strategies in divested communities. Prioritize and accessible training, education, and community economic development through the creation of a clean energy job pipeline through green jobs trainings and certifications that we offer at the hub, and I'll talk about later on in the presentation. And also replicable access and adaptation to energy security in low to moderate income communities and historically economically disadvantaged communities, such as where the hub is situated in Petersburg. And now a little bit about the Virginia Environmental Justice Collaborative. We were founded in 2015. I began serving as the coordinator in 2018. During that time, we had 18 member organizations, and under my direction, we have grown to 45 member organizations. Became the CEO for the VJC in 2021 and still serve in that capacity. Some of the successes of the collaborative: we created the Virginia Environmental Justice Council, which was later codified and now is included in the state budget. We collaborated with environmental justice communities to halt the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We're now working on stopping the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is uh, affecting many of our many of our communities in Virginia, and all the way, through the Carolinas and other parts of the country. So that has been a job that we were proud to collaborate on, and to say that we did halt the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, so that we know that it can be done, as we also fight, Wegmans distribution centers and landfills throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have to stand strong in these fights, and the hub is one of those places where we be able to come together to plan and strategize on how to continue these environmental justice battles. We drafted the Virginia Environmental Justice Act of 2020, which is now the law in Virginia, and we facilitated the creation of an interagency work group so that all state agencies would have a lens through environmental justice. We created an environmental justice map, and I believe these slides will be shared out with all of our attendees, so you'll be able to click on and see the map. One thing that is different about our map is that it features first-person community narratives, and it will allow us the opportunity to be able to cite potential locations where there's a need, or where we can create other resiliency hubs using the Petersburg hub as a model. And we will also be able to add lead service lines where those need to be replaced, as well as landfills, so that people will see where they are in the state of Virginia. Okay. Right, so Resiliency Hub. In early 2018, UPAL partners began having talks about resiliency hubs. At the time, Virginia was not so solar friendly. In November of 2018, I was one of 4 celebrated at the Leaders in Energy 4-generation award ceremony, and I represented the baby boomer generation. It was there that I met Catherine Mora of Mural Power, a young lady who is electrical engineer, and in my presentation and accepting the award has shared a little bit about the collaborative and UPAL and what we were doing in terms of a resiliency hub. And we continued, as I continued to have those talks with Catherine, the whole idea became more doable. So how does resiliency look? Our resiliency hub includes a community advisory board. The resiliency hub must be community-based and community-led, as we shift powers to communities, including the control of community funds, so that someone else is not coming from outside telling us where we need to put resources, nor having the control over those resources. Those must be community-led. And it involves taking and maintaining ownership and exercising the right to self-determination. What is a resiliency hub? Petersburg Resiliency Hub is the first solar-powered community hub in Virginia, and it will operate as a one-stop center, providing many, many resources, mainly being a safe haven during the storms of life. We are a heating and cooling center, providing clean, safe drinking water, nutritious food, a clothing boutique, and offering trainings and certifications towards self-sufficiency. We will provide a guided historical tours of the hub and the surrounding community, which is a historic community. And we are connected to retired veterans because our hub was once used as a USO for colored Army troops during military segregation. And so with resiliency, we go from being intentionally divested to becoming resilient, self-sufficient communities. We also offer community emergency response training for youth and adults, certification in CPR, AED, and basic first aid. We have on staff some ASHI certified instructors, lead inspections and remediation training and certification, as well as training mold inspectors, mold workers, and mold supervisors and certifying them to do that work. We host an eight-hour driver improvement clinic through DMV, as well as an escort vehicle training and certification class towards entrepreneurship. The possibilities are endless. Some of our future plans include green jobs training, again, solar PV panel assembly and installation, the distribution of clean water that will also be generated through solar, and access to green spaces. I mentioned UPAL's labyrinth, used to address trauma and maintain mental and physical well-being as we encourage people to get outdoors, coming off of the 2 years of being shut in due to the pandemic. And also towards complete community solar, so that all of the houses on our block have access to solar and electrification. So the solar panels have arrived, and that's we were so happy to see the truck bringing the panels that day. And the pictures that you see now are all graduates of our first solar PV installation class, which was held in September 2022. And we were funded with RPLI funding initiative, the Resilient Power Leadership Initiative. And this is the graduating class in September. We graduated 20, and I believe we had 3 or 4 young women who also took the class. And some of these graduates are now working in different parts of the country in cells, as well as installing solar panels. And we'd like to continue to offer those classes. Here you see a picture of them preparing for the installation, so getting the panels from the truck to the rooftop. And we are, again, I mentioned the former USO for colored troops. This slide shows the proclamation that was given by the mayor of Petersburg. That's what we looked like before we opened up to show the beautiful windows that you see on this side of the building. So quite a difference. We had a grand opening on April 30th, 2022. So coming upon our year anniversary of actually having the building open to the community. Here's where March 17th, we were added to the historic sites of Virginia, on Virginia Landmarks Register. We were one of 9 sites that were admitted on that day. So we are a national landmark due to the significance of the military significance of being a USO club, and also the first African American mayor chartered a group called the Boat 20 Club. He chartered that, and he was also the first mayor of Petersburg and the first African American mayor in the state of Virginia. So those 2 things led to the building being classified as historical. So resilience, we've all seen the pictures of the flooding, the sea level rise. We've seen bodies floating down the street from the floods. And we've seen people stranded on rooftops. If we remember Katrina, pleading for help, and there was no one to come, to rescue them. So we go from climate refugees to climate resilience, one community at a time. And we must know that when government fails to protect us by rolling back the environment protections, then it's our God-given moral and human right to protect and save ourselves and raise our communities back to their original heights. So the community we're in is called the Heights, or the Delectable Heights, in Petersburg, Virginia. This is a mural that's on the building right adjacent to us, but our backyards meet, and that's a mural that's wanted to share that reminds us that of the heights that it once had. It was a community of professional working African American Black folks that lived in the heights, and to see you know, the divestment and what it has been allowed to sink to is very troubling. The building itself was slated to be torn down, and we just couldn't see us losing that the history and the cultural significance. So, Anna, if you can please click on this clip, as we're nearing the end of the presentation, I just wanted to share with you a very short clip. There is no sound to it, but it will show you the transformation that the hub building has gone through. Thanks, Anna. Thank you, Anna. And I think I have maybe one more slide. Okay, so this is how we look today. And this is shows some of our funders, major funders, Institute for Sustainable Communities, the HANU Foundation, Clean Energy Group, of course, Soul Systems, Clean Virginia, and there are others that just haven't been added yet. We removed the coming soon, which was at the top, because we are now open to the public and community is using the hub. We have not turned on the solar yet. We've had some issues with installation, but we anticipate we've had to push it back from the end of April. So now we're looking at the month of May before we get the okay from the power company and from the local city to turn the power on. And I will certainly invite you all to join us in celebrating that day as we look forward to it. And then I think I had some contact information. And that completes my presentation. And thank you for allowing me to share and introduce you to the Resiliency Hub in Virginia. And I'll turn it back over to you, Anna and Mario.
Thank you both so much. This was really great, and I will say we have a significant amount of questions. So I'm going to get through what I can, and for anyone else, I encourage you to reach out, and we can always connect you with folks. So if Dr. Estelle and Queen could both be on their webcams, there we go. I'll start. So one of the first questions we got is for you, Dr. Montgomery. Could you describe the ownership of your facility and how that helped or hindered your efforts to move forward with the Resilience Hub?
Did not hinder. The FH Faunteroy Community Enrichment Center was founded by the building developer. It was a community benefits agreement. So it is, as I've mentioned in the presentation, in its legal form, it is the Roxton Community Development Corporation. It has a board and its founder. and we have a very involved board. So, I mean, as a community-based a community benefits agreement organization, it has definitely been beneficial in the process of what we're doing. I hope that answers the ownership, because it's.
Yeah, I think that was clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And then for you, Queen, could you describe a little bit further how you incorporated battery storage into the training? And it, just because a lot of folks here have mentioned, oh, does that require like having to train folks to become an engineer, which is much more time intensive? How did you make that part of your training?
Yes, well, we have an engineer. I mentioned more of a power, so they were with us from the beginning through the planning stages, even when we first got the technical assistance fund to do a feasibility study. So we had them on board, and we've been working with Class A contractors. So we had some electrical engineers and electricians on board. In the beginning, we were not planning to incorporate battery storage, but as it kept coming up and we had discussions with funders and got funding to purchase the batteries, we said, you know, yeah, why not? Because we'd like to be able to store energy for several days and even feed back to the power company. So it was, you know, it started as an idea, you know, like everything. We got the support to make it happen. We were able to get the batteries, which have already been installed, but they just have not been connected. So it's just a matter of, you know, having intention, seeing what the community needs. You know, as I said, we have a community advisory board, and we run everything through them as to, you know, what's needed and what they'd like to see there. So we came up with this, yes, let's include battery storage.
Great. And this is really for either of you, but we've gotten a lot of questions related to talking to the community about what resilience means and how does resilient power play into that. Are there any specific services that your centers will be providing in the event of a power outage tailored to what your community has expressed they wanted, or is it kind of like a go-to checklist of these are the basic things we want to be able to do in the event of a power outage? We can start with you, Dr. Montgomery.
I mean, for us, a power outage is significant. What we would want to do is be sure that we're able to secure resources that the community would need in the event of a power outage. So everything from you can come here and charge your cell phone or computer to store medication, for instance. And that there's also in that commercial kitchen that there's a design for quite a significant food storage cooling system, right? So refrigeration and so forth. And the wellness space would also have the very basics in medical care in the event of an emergency and a power outage. So it's to be a location that not only can support equipment that needs power, but also the person. So again, that focus on, yes, there's that acute stressor, there's that hazard, but then there's that person that you also need to be able to support. So it's being able to do both.
Yes, I agree. And you know, like Dr. Montgomery said, those stresses. So we're dealing with pretty much the same makeup in you know, in DC and in Virginia and our respective communities. So all that she said, and in addition to the generational trauma that comes with dealing with those stresses on a daily basis. So yes, we have to deal with the individual, and I think a good thing is that we are open not just during a time of disaster or during a time of a crisis, but every day, so that people get used to the hub being there and they come in for various reasons. Like for instance, we've gotten funding from masterclass so that people can come and take those classes, use our computers. So just being that stable and people knowing that you're there, not just in a time, you know, of disaster, but for them to, you know, just as a part of the community, a one-stop center that where they can get information, they can get food, they can get clothing, and just build on being, you know, self-sufficient.
And if I may just add to that, and that's in the presentation when I talked about the community engagement component, extremely important, and it speaks to what Queen is referring to. We take our hand dancing, our senior bingo, our art exhibits, our Juneteenth celebrations. This is part of that vibrant community that's described in what is resilience, right? And that trust that's built up. So indeed, when there is a disaster, you know exactly where you can be.
Yeah.
That's great. And I know, folks, that we had a lot of questions and we couldn't get to all of them. So I encourage you to reach out to Clean Energy Group, and I'd be happy to share any specific questions you have with either of our panelists. One thing that I can say is a lot of folks reached out and asked if there are any write-ups on the actual resilience hub design for either of these facilities. And CEG will make sure to share those as they become available, both through Faunteroy Center and UPAL, but we'll also be working on developing case studies with once the installations are installed that include this community overview component as well as the actual system design, so that we can get some one-pagers into your hands for how to replicate this, because I know most of the questions were about this is exactly what we want to do, how do we do it? So great resources here today. I really want to say thank you for all of those who had questions about, can we apply to the Technical Assistance Fund or the Resilient Power Leadership Initiative? I encourage you just to reach out to me at CEG and we can talk about it. And again, if anyone would like specific questions for our panelists, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to coordinate. Thank you both so much, Dr. Montgomery, Queen, for joining us today. This webinar is recorded. We'll share a link with everyone within 24 hours. And really, really appreciative of having you all here. So
Thank you for
Thank you
having us.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Have a good
Thanks.
rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Too. Bye now.